What's up, everybody? It's Spencer Alessi, and this is the Esports Narrative. This is episode 15, and today we're talking with Stephen Hayes.
How you doing?
Good, Stephen. How are you? Welcome to the Esports Narrative.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here. I'm excited about what you're doing, and I've enjoyed listening to the episodes so far.
Thanks. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. Thanks for coming on. So, Stephen, you are the managing partner of Deep Space Ventures, correct? And you guys focus on seed stage startups. Is that among other things, or is it just esports startups?
Yeah, so Deep Space Ventures is a fund that I raised at the end of 2015. I launched it in March of 2016. We are what many would call a micro VC. We're about a $20 million fund based in Dallas, Texas. And we started out focused on B2B enterprise software startups at the early stage, so it's seed stage preferably. And then about a year ago, we made our first investment in an esports startup. And since then, we've now closed our fourth investment in early stage esports businesses. It's a sector that I'm very excited about and have a strong thesis on. And, I expect to continue building a portfolio in that space.
Awesome. Congratulations. I did see that on Twitter earlier, so congratulations on that.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's always exciting to get a deal closed. There's a lot that goes into it on both sides, from the founders and from the investors, and getting a deal to the finish line is always something to celebrate. So thank you very much.
You're welcome. And a little bit of a tidbit of personal information about you. You graduated from West Point Military Academy, is that right?
That's right. I graduated from West Point. I was in the Army for a little while. I got out and kind of floundered around in real estate for a little while during the crash of 06, 7, and 8, and found my way to business school. I got an MBA at Vanderbilt, and then I ended up going to Wall Street and being an investment banker for a total of about 7 years. 4 of those years were in New York. 3, I had moved back to Dallas, and as much as I tried really hard to escape investment banking because it's a really tough grind. It's an unhealthy job in a lot of ways. It's also a fun, rewarding job in a lot of ways. But I finally made the transition out of banking and raised the fund at the end of 2015.
Awesome. Now, for those listening that might not know what seed stage is, can you give us a little bit of a rundown of what seed stage is and what that means?
Sure. So when a venture capitalist says seed stage, people define the stages a little bit differently. I think everybody might give you a slightly different answer, but there's really what I first call pre-seed. That's when you go out and use your credit card, or you borrow money from your parents, or you ask your college roommates or fraternity brothers for a couple of bucks and you get your business off the ground. Seed stage is typically when an institutional investor, meaning an actual venture capital fund, is going to invest in your business. It's the first time a professional investor who invests for a living is going to put money in, and you're likely raising more along the lines of $1 million, $2 million, or $3 million to get your business that you've already gotten your business out of your head, from your idea and onto paper, and you've started it. You may even have a minimum viable product. But at the seed stage is when you sort of pour gasoline on the fire and start to scale the business, whether that's driving additional users or driving revenue or adding to the product or whatever the next steps may be.
Now, I have a really off-topic question. I mean, it's on topic, but off-topic, kind of related to the show. And that's one of what is the appropriate way, or how do you feel about investment versus building an actual business first? There's some people that I follow on the internet that talk a lot about, creating an actual business before you start looking for investment, or you start before raising money, that kind of thing. What's your feelings on, building a business versus investing to get it started?
Yeah, there's certainly something to be said for what I call bootstrapping, which is not taking outside capital. And frankly, I think a lot of great businesses are built that way. And I enjoyed hearing what James Chen said about not wanting venture capitalist money to come in and help get certain organizations off the ground. I believe it was him on your podcast that said that. Yeah. But some businesses are ideal for venture capital investment from both the company side and from a VC's point of view, and some are not. Now, some businesses are what I call lifestyle businesses, or they're going to grow organically, and that's great, but they're not going to grow at the rate that's going to drive what the return that venture capitalists are looking for. So I don't think there's one's better or worse. Venture capital investors are looking for just ridiculous returns. A venture investor at the seed stage is hoping that the business is going to return to him or her, 20, 50, or 100 times their investment. And they look for that return knowing that it's married to an equally catastrophic downside, if you will, of total loss. But it's one of the few asset classes where the risk and reward are not balanced with each other. The risk is only 1x, which sounds incredible to a lot of people, but a 1x downside, so a full loss, 100% loss, is married to the chance to make 100 times your investment. So if you make enough smart bets in early stage businesses, one winner pays for all of the other investments plus some.
Right.
So when I'm looking for a business, I'm looking for a business that can scale. Is capital going to help the business get to the point where it's going to be worth 20, 30, 40, 50 times what it is today? And some businesses, if you gave the company $2 million, it might not actually really help them that much. And some businesses, if you gave them $2 million, they could triple overnight with sales and marketing and adding more products and building their team and hiring more people.
Is that what some investors see in these big brands like Optic or Envious, who recently got big investment? Is that what they see in these brands? Is they see an opportunity because these brands are so well known, or they perform really well in tournaments? They've been around for a while. Is that what these investment companies see as, the opportunity, or where's the opportunity there, for both sides?
Right. As far as investing in teams, I've had this conversation with, everybody that I've talked to who's investing in the space. And I think VCs have a hard time investing in teams. And if you look at who's investing in the teams, it's, the Hirsch family here in Dallas, where I live, is investing in the team. I'm having a brain fart right now, but the team out of North Carolina that's moving to Dallas. They put $35 million valuation on that team. That's incredible. I don't think that I can't imagine that they're ever going to get 20 or 30 or 40 times return on that. That's not a VC investment. When I look at the ways a team can scale and their business model and the opportunities to generate revenue, I don't see a model, in my opinion, that true venture investors can generate the return that our investors, the people who give us the money to deploy, expect. I see an opportunity for a cash flowing business that can grow over time and is something that gives you domain knowledge. I have certainly looked at investing in teams, and the times I've come really close, the justification has been there's a lot of domain knowledge here, and this could help me get access to other venture deals. But when I was running my math, I didn't expect to get 100 times return on investing in a team, although I think teams are a great place to invest. You look at the Kraft Group. I think they're going to make money on their Overwatch League team. Certainly. I don't know how long it's going to take them to do it. You look at traditional sports even. Look at investing in a team. You look at Jerry Jones spent, just over $100 million on the Cowboys, and 30 years later it's worth, several $billion. So he made 50, 60, 70 times his money, but it took 3 decades. We're trying to make those kind of returns in 7 to 10 years or less.
Right. Now, what does esports mean to you? If you had to describe it to someone or define it, what does esports mean to you?
That's a great question. I get it all the time. Competitive video game play. That's how I describe it. Sometimes I call it professional video game play. I think the purist would say that it's professional video game competition. I kind of broaden the definition in my mind to include anybody competing with anybody at video games. Yeah,
it's good that you mentioned that because, I think esports in the traditional sense, people always think professional at the highest level, but like you said, there's collegiate, there's high school, there's amateur, there's all sorts of things, not just professional.
Yeah, I mean, there's streaming. I know some people kind of knock the streaming community a little bit, but I mean, the streaming community does a couple of things for esports. One, a lot of the streamers are really not the best players, but they're highly entertaining, and they do something really unique that I think is special to esports and gaming that you do not get with traditional sports, and that they build community. A lot of people think about gaming and playing video games as an introvert's activity. Like it's a bunch of people sitting in their mom's basement with tinfoil hats on playing video games. And that's not what it is. And, there's actually a community, and it's a very social community. And, most of the people that I play PUBG with, I've met in stream chat or on a streamer's Discord. So, there's a very vibrant community around gaming and esports that's very social, it's very interactive, it's very tight-knit, and it's very unique.
This is the first time I think I've said this on the show, but Twitch chat, to me, or streaming in general, kind of reminds me of, tailgating. I think Twitch chat is like the online tailgate party.
It absolutely. I mean, I was watching one of my favorite streamers last night, and she played video games for a little while, but for most of the time, the conversation was about the eclipse and about, there was a little bit of politics and then a little bit of just chat about just stuff going on in people's lives. I mean, the community that's been built around esports as the anchor of that community is really huge. It's powerful. I mean, what surprises me is that there's, 300 or 400 million people worldwide that are engaged, depending on what report you look at, in the video gaming or esports world, whether that's watching or playing, or they've been to one event, or they, whatever, they heard their friend, they've been on Twitch once because their friend told them to. That's a lot of people. I mean, that's a significant percentage of the global population, yet my friends ask me these questions. What is esports? Wait, is that just people people pay to watch others play? Wait a second. People log online and watch other people. Well, that doesn't make any sense. So the questions I get from my friends, and some of those are venture investors and some of those are just my buddies, are surprising considering how many people are actually engaged in the market.
Mm-hmm. Now, I like to take my readers or my listeners on a journey, through the ups and downs of someone's career. So what's been one of the worst moments for you?
Career-wise, worst moments. Investment banking I think of my career as a broader finance career. So VC is finance. I was an investment banker, which is also a finance job. Investment banking was a really tough experience. I gained a lot of weight. I would never sell my wife. I was traveling all the time. I was working 100 to 110, sometimes 120 hours a week. An 85-hour week was almost like a vacation. When I went on vacations, I was working. It was intense, and it was unhealthy, and it was rewarding. I mean, it pays well, but that whole time was tough. But the toughest time, long story short, I broke my ankle playing basketball one night, and then I had to fly to Honolulu and back. I mean, literally, I was in Honolulu for 4 hours. Ended up getting blood clots in my leg, and then the next day I went to Mexico City and ended up in a Mexico City intensive care unit for 7 days with blood clots. That was probably the low point of the finance career.
Yeah, I would say that's probably a banger.
Yeah, I mean, it's an intense business.
What did you learn from the early years of your career there, from your experiences, that you could share?
I learned how to evaluate a business, and then I learned how to position a business, how to talk about a business to investors, how to help a business raise money, how to mitigate the risks of a business in the eyes of a potential investor or acquirer of that business. And I believe that those skills are really helpful for me in deal flow sourcing and for vetting and executing deals on my side. And then in addition, once I've invested in the business and it's in the portfolio, those skills are useful in recruiting other investors to invest in the businesses that I'm already in at later rounds. So I don't think that I could be doing what I'm doing now without that experience I had in investment banking.
Mm-hmm. Now, on the contrary, let's talk about some accomplishments. What's been the biggest accomplishment for you so far in your career?
Oh, that's tough to say. I mean, it's hard because, the investment banking part of my career, it's such a selfish business. I mean, it's all about, you work hard, but it's all about making money, and that's not that rewarding at the end of the day. I'd say the biggest accomplishment, it's a lot of little small accomplishments. There's nothing makes me feel better than when a founder who's in our portfolio calls and says, I've got this problem and I don't know how to solve it. Or we need to figure out if we should go this way or go that way. And being able to apply some of the things I've learned to help a business forecast what's going to happen with its cash over time as they run into certain decision points, and then those things coming true, and then the business flourishing and doing well. That's what's rewarding. So it's hard for me to say, hey, there's this one really rewarding thing. It's every day when a founder calls and says, man, that conversation we had a couple weeks ago, we ended up doing that, and it's 3 or 4 weeks later, and now we're seeing better metrics on A, B, or C that we're tracking in our business. I'm really glad you gave me that advice. That's rewarding, and that's why I love venture investing and working with founders. It's problem solving and seeing in the feedback loops on those problem sets are very short. At the same time, the feedback loop on investing is very long. So it's kind of interesting. I know I just kind of went a little bit off point there, but
no, that's fine. I think that's an important lesson. It's more important how you make your money than how much money you make, and I think that's an important lesson for people to really understand and soak in.
Yeah, and I think the esports community embodies that. I think there's a lot of people that have made esports their full-time job, whether it's streamers or whether it's competitive players. And while there are people getting paid a lot of money to win the international or to win a large tournament, there's a lot of folks out there that are just grinding away on Twitch or grinding away trying to get into competitions and tournaments that aren't killing it, but it's their job and they're making a living playing video games. And I think that population will continue to grow, and it's certainly going to be an opportunity for people in the future, for more and more people.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a slew of streamers and players and things like that are making, I don't know, $80,000 a year, 100, 120, 65,000, but they're happy and they're playing video games for a living. I mean, I think that's really important to just know yourself and understand what makes you tick. And if you're good with $85,000 a year and you love playing video games and that sustains you and your lifestyle, like that's success in their own terms.
Absolutely. I mean, one of the things that I learned about myself and about humans from my time sitting in a cube was that we weren't meant for that. And if you can figure out what it is you need to make every month to survive, and if you can lower your cost of living a little bit as well, and if you can do that by playing a game that you love or by interacting with a community that supports you and are your fans, even if it's just a couple hundred people. There are many streamers on Twitch that are surviving and paying their bills, and it's their full-time job streaming 8 hours a day they don't have that many followers. They have 200 or 300 viewers per night, and they've got about 20 or 30,000 people that follow their stream, which is not a big number. I mean, the bigger streamers on Twitch are followed by a million plus followers, and those people are making a living doing something they enjoy, which is, I believe. Oh, sorry,
their fans are super passionate, and they've developed, like you said, a rich community that's just super, super passionate about the streamer that they support, and it's an interesting dynamic to see. When you watch someone who's a popular streamer and you watch donations roll in, and just like you kind of think to yourself at first, it's like, why are they giving this person their money? Like, I don't understand why they would give. And then you start watching them more, and you kind of understand the community and the entertainment that they're providing. It's like people literally can't give their money away fast enough.
Yeah, and I believe that as humans we're innately seeking community. We want, the way we've survived as long as we have on this planet is because we've developed communication tools and techniques, and we've built community, and we've built We've built organizations that help us survive better together. And so it's just this natural thing that we seek community. And when you go on a stream and then you find a Discord channel associated with that streamer, and then you make friends with people that you play with because they're interested in the same things you are, or you both think this streamer is funny or entertaining, so you have a similar view of certain things. Hey, that's powerful, and that drives intense engagement. And the intensity of engagement is one of my core points to my thesis about esports. You've got people that spend more time playing or watching video games per day and per week than they spend doing almost anything else other than working, and sometimes it's more than their work. And so when you've got a market that is growing at the rate that esports and gaming is growing, with engagement at the level that it is, then that's enough right there for me as an investor to want to pour money into the space and into parts of the space that are driving more connectivity and community and better performance and enjoyment of the games. And that's, I just think it's a powerful community is powerful, and that's what we see in esports.
Yeah, the average time spent on a mobile device, I think it's like 50% of the time spent on a mobile device is like Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram, the major social channels. Like 50% of someone's time on a mobile device is spent there. And for me, it's probably like 99%. And I'm sure for the esports industry, if you were to look at that, Twitch is on there, and I'm sure it's a very, very large number. And with it being so exciting, with streamers and the communities that they're creating, what makes esports so exciting as a whole? Is there anything else that we didn't touch on that makes esports so exciting that's maybe different from traditional sports or other industries, other entertainment industries?
Absolutely. I love this question. Esports to me today is what traditional sports was supposed to be. It is a pure distraction from the troubles of everyday life, from politics, from drama, from whatever the garbage is that you don't want to watch on cable news, or you don't want to watch on, some now even on ESPN. I mean, you can't turn on a football game now and not hear about something about politics. Regardless of what you believe and what you think and how you feel, sometimes when I turn on sports, it's an escape opportunity, and esports is that. There's no politics when you're watching a video game. There's not even commercials, except for 3 minutes at the end of a stream if you're not an Amazon Prime member on Twitch. So it's a place to escape reality and be entertained and be a part of a community in a way that I think sports was supposed to be, traditional sports.
Yeah, and with VR and AR coming up, being highly developed, there's a lot of development and advancements in virtual reality. It's going to be even more immersive and more of an escapism, and you could be anywhere in front of anyone at any time with that kind of technology in mind.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think technology has caught up to esports, has caught up to video gaming. It's now providing the ability to communicate and play in real time across vast distances. And, when I was in middle school and high school, my friends would come over and we would play 007. And we would play that game, 4-player 007, for hours and hours and hours. And I remember always sitting around thinking, well, wouldn't it be cool if we could just play from our own homes? And that's what we have today. And I think that now that technology is caught up to what gamers want, the market's exploding.
Now, with a young market, how esports, you could argue is not that old. You could argue that it is old, semantics. But in the esports industry, and it being where it is today, there's no doubt opportunity. So how do we capitalize on the excitement of esports? How do we capitalize on the opportunity to either have a great career, make good money doing what you love? How do you take advantage of the esports industry and capitalize on it?
That's a good question. There's so many ways to do it. I think if you're an excellent player, I think you seek to find a way to be on a top team. And that's going to increasingly mean going to college on scholarship to play esports. That's going to increasingly mean going and getting recruited to play on Optic or Envious or Solo Mid, or you name a team. I think that's one route. If you are more of a content generator or more of a character, or you have, an interesting personality, like Dr. Disrespect or, one of these guys on. Yeah. So there's no reason why Guy should go and play on a team. He has an incredible personality. He's extremely entertaining, and 30,000 people a day on average that's not official, but just from me looking every day at him and the numbers on his stream, sign in. And like for one month, I watched him for a couple hours a day, and I just made a check mark every time he got a new subscriber. And I started doing the math on that and just sort of assuming, well, even if he's splitting that with Twitch, he's making a lot of money, and that's another opportunity. Just go be entertaining. And to be honest, and no disrespect to Dr. Disrespect, he's not the best player, but he is the most entertaining player. And that's why he has the following that he does. So there's streaming. There's other ways to get involved in esports as well. Start a business. Find a way to make gaming better for, other people, whether that's a device or a piece of equipment, or whether that's a software, whether that's facilitating tournaments for kids or high schoolers or college players or whatever that may be. There's so many opportunities to create businesses in and around esports, and you don't even have to be a gamer. I mean, you probably need to be to understand the space. There's a lot of required domain knowledge to be effective within esports, but that's another way to go. There's so many ways to go. That's just 3 examples.
Now, touching on that subject a little bit and just changing gears a tiny bit, how can an esports organization kind of create new revenue channels or create new ways of bringing in revenue other than the traditional methods right now? You have sponsorships, you have tournament winnings that aren't a large part, obviously, but you have sponsorships and investment and things like that. You have merchandise. What are some ways that esports organizations maybe can innovate and create new revenue channels, or what is maybe some things that are in the pipelines that you see are opportunities for organizations to be able to monetize and increase revenue that way?
I think what some of the teams are doing is, when I go on and watch Twitch, when I watch PUBG, all of the solo mid guys are playing on Twitch every day. Smack, Vis, Break, Aim PR. Those guys are on every day streaming. I don't have any idea what their deal is with the team about that revenue and how it gets shared between them and the team. But I don't guarantee you, but I feel pretty confident that solo mid's making money off of those guys being on stream. And I don't see enough teams doing that. I think that more of the teams should put their professional players out there to drive more engagement, and that then generates revenue, and then that generates product sales. That generates, if I sit there and watch Vis play for 8 hours a day, then eventually I'm going to go on his website and I'm going to buy a t-shirt. And then when I want to order a new computer, I'm going to click the link in his stream profile and go to CyberPower PC and put in his code, and I'm going to get a discount. Mm-hmm. And then Solo Mid's going to get a kickback for that. So those are the kind of ways that I see teams making more money, basically using their engagement within the community that follows them to drive other revenue opportunities as they drive brand awareness for their sponsors. So the sponsor dollars is one thing, but the revenue sharing opportunity when you drive when Dr. Disrespect starts talking about Turtle Beach headgear, that makes me go, man, if it's good enough for him, then maybe I should go. Or, hey, what monitor should I buy? Oh, well, he uses a 27-inch Asus, G-Sync monitor. I'm going to go get one of those. Mm-hmm. That's where the opportunities are right now, I believe.
Yeah, and taking advantage of the platform, like you said, because there's no doubt Twitch is owned by Amazon now, and Amazon, Jeff Bezos is a beast, and there's no doubt that Twitch is going to be around for a long time, and they're going to be continuing to innovate. You can already buy games from your favorite streamer on their channel, and a lot of the things you mentioned. There's going to be a lot of innovation to Twitch. And it may, it might not be Twitch as we know it. It might be transformed over the years, but there will be a lot of opportunity there, like you said, to create additional revenue channels for players. And
yeah, absolutely.
One of the teams that I follow, it's a CS:GO team. They play in the Mountain Dew League. It's Mythic. Shout out to Mythic. but they all stream. All 5 guys stream all their matches, all their scrims. They stream everything. And I think it's going to be a model that we'll see more and more. And I think that when we do see that, since everything is on the table, everyone knows what everyone's doing, you essentially have all the VODs all online, and you can view them at any time. I really think it's going to increase the level of skill and talent, and it's going to increase the level of the gameplay, and it's going to, put everyone on that same level, because everyone's going to be able to see what you're doing and know your strats and everything like that, and it's just going to make you a better player, or make you have to rise to the occasion or not. You know what I mean? It's going to be meritocracy at that point.
And just when you say that, what pops into my mind are business opportunities. The opportunity to provide a service that goes and catalogs all that gameplay and builds an analysis on the trends of certain players, and you provide that like a football recruiter does for the Dallas Cowboys or the New England Patriots. Goes and watches the team they're playing the next week. There's a business opportunity there, and I know people are doing that now, but there's plenty of opportunity there. There's a lot of opportunities in and around this space that have not been touched or have not been fully developed. And so, just when you say that, it makes me think, hey, there's a business opportunity there.
Yeah. And it's like software, right? Like, software has APIs. Games are going to, and developers, whether they've got on the boat yet or not, I'm not sure, but they will, because they'll realize the advantages of having an API, some sort of common language that these services can take advantage of, and that's also an opportunity I see is when games start having APIs where you can literally connect to these things and grab, kill, frag counts and death counts and things like that, and you can grab that more easily, and you can create services around that, like you said. I think that's going to be a huge advantage, and something that publishers and game developers are going to start doing once they see the advantage of doing that and the partnerships that they can acquire and go down that route. I think is going to be really huge.
Yeah, we're invested in a couple that are already doing that. So I agree with you. And I think the publishers are definitely willing to open up the data coming out of the game to service providers, because, look, if I buy a service that makes me better at playing a game, I'm going to play the game more. And that's what the publishers want. They want more engagement, and they want you to tell your friends that they buy the game. So, yes. And I think all of the startups we've invested in have great relationships with just about all of the major publishers. And I would say that the publishers are the incentive alignment between the publishers and the folks building businesses around those APIs are certainly in alignment.
Now, this is the part of the show I call the 5-question combo breaker. It's kind of like the lightning round. It's the button mashing section of the show, so to speak. What's the best advice someone has ever given you?
Okay. The best advice I would say isn't really even just some advice someone gave me. It was a mentality that I was taught at West Point that I call no excuse. It's just a mentality. When you're a freshman at West Point, or a plebe as we call them, you are only allowed to respond to upperclassmen with one of 4 responses. And it's yes, sir, no excuse, sir, or sir, I don't understand. And obviously, sir or ma'am. I just was being brief there. The correct answer to just about anything that happens to you or goes on around you is no excuse. If someone walks into the mess hall at breakfast and dumps a carton of milk on your head and then says, hey, why is there milk on the floor? No excuse. And I know that sounds silly, but that's just one anecdotal example that happened to me. But what it teaches you is responsibility, and to take responsibility for everything around you and everything that could impact you. And when you're running a business, when you're building something, when you are not working for a corporation where it's easy to pass the buck to someone else, no excuse is a way of life. And I think that mentality has caused me to over-prepare for everything I ever do. And I think that's the best advice I've ever received, was just learning that lesson.
Really great advice. What do you think the esports industry needs to continue to grow and be successful?
I think there's a lot of growth. So I think, first of all, the momentum that it already has just needs to be sustained. But I think more overall awareness of what esports really is. Kind of like I was saying early on, I'm amazed at how big this market is, but at the same time, so many people I know don't have any idea what it is. And that imbalance is the opportunity in my mind as an investor in a space where it's already huge and growing, but nobody on my street, none of my neighbors know what esports is, until I tell them. I think increased awareness of what we were talking about earlier of the community aspect. The video games and the ecosystem around them have just changed so much since I was a kid. Like my parents thought that video games were bad for my eyes or they prevented social interaction. Now, video game play and following esports is this portal into a global community. And like I said earlier, some of the folks that I look forward to interacting with every day are the folks that I've met in a streamer's channel or on a Discord channel playing video games.
What's the best play you've seen or the most memorable moment for you in esports?
So for me, and this theme has kind of stayed true throughout our conversation, for me, I like the streaming community. I like streamers, and I like Dr. Disrespect, and nothing makes me laugh more than his just cliche actions, like a 360 kill to win a PUBG competition, and some of the things he says and does. That's what entertains me. I certainly can't. I mean, like the episode with James Chen where he talked about an episode that. At a competition that he saw, I could never articulate something I've seen as well as he could. But just his antics, Dr. Disrespect, I just love watching that guy.
Yeah, he kind of reminds me of Horatio Kane from CSI Miami. I don't know if you are familiar with that.
Yeah, that's a good point.
With the one-liners where he puts on his sunglasses and it's just super funny.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny in the way he describes everything. And one of the things I find funny is sometimes when I have folks over, I'll throw him on TV, and the reactions that I see on people's faces from people who've never seen it before are priceless.
Yeah, and Dr. Disrespect, if you're listening, there's no world in where you don't come on the show and share your esports and competitive gaming tenacity and wisdom with all the listeners. So if you're listening, Dr. Disrespect, hit me up.
Yeah, right on. I hope he comes on the show for sure.
Now, share something that's a little bit more tactical or tangible for the listeners, something that's been beneficial to you in your career that someone might get value from.
Yeah, I would say build a personal network. Go out and meet everyone you can in this space. If you want to be in the esports space, whether it's starting a business or being a gamer or being a streamer or working for a team or running a team, starting a team, build a network. And the reason I say that is because, one, it's we all heard, all of our lives is not about what you know, it's about who you know. The thing about the esports community is everyone is super accessible. And so there's no excuse for why you can't build a network. And I would imagine that you've seen that trying to start this podcast, the number of people that have responded to you and said, yeah, I'll come on your show. Just from the tweets you've put out today about 2 interviews today and 2 tomorrow and 1 on Thursday. I mean, you probably random inbound a lot of those people, and they all said yes. That's because this community is an open network where people are responsive and helpful to each other.
Yeah, and if you're respectable of someone's time and you're like, hey, listen, I know you're busy and things like that, and you're offering to do something that's, not going to cost them anything or, take up too much of their time, or if they have time and you're respectful of that, people are pretty receptive.
Yeah, and just one last thing. I mean, I said network. The most valuable part of my network is the academy network of West Point grads, and our network expands across all of the academies after we graduate. And what I would say to younger folks that are thinking about what they're going to do with their lives, go do something challenging early in your life. Do not take the easy road. yeah, go to a military academy or go do something hard with your life, early on, and then learn some lessons from that, and then go apply them to what you want to do later. And there's 1,000 ways to do that.
Yeah, that's really great advice. What's one daily habit that's been a big factor for your success?
I would say really not having a rigid structure to my days, to be honest. When I worked in a cube 9 to 5, I was so much less productive than I am today. The ability to adapt and work when and where and how I want makes me far more productive than I ever thought I could be when I worked inside of some bureaucratic organization. So, I know a lot of people, if you listen to Tim Ferriss podcasts, look, people talk about having these routines and everything's the same all the time, and that's great. That doesn't work for me. I like having a flexible schedule, and the esports community, the gamers that I play with, the people that are running the companies in the esports space that I'm invested in. It's a late community. Everyone does everything at night, so I usually take the mornings kind of to myself, and having the flexibility to do that, I believe has driven me to be more productive than ever. So just having a flexible schedule, and I know that's hard to do, right? Like if you're sitting there and you're listening to this and you're going, I got to get up and go to work at 9 a.m. tomorrow. This is garbage advice. Then honestly, man, you should consider what you're doing, and you should look for a way where you can be free and work for yourself and do it in a space that you love. And I've been fortunate that some of the sacrifices I made early in my life and throughout the investment banking years have put me in a position where I can have that flexible schedule now.
Yeah, that's really great advice, and I think that's something that's resonates with me, in that you just have to figure yourself out. You have to know if you like that structure, then maybe you do like a 9 to 5, and that's your thing. If you don't, maybe you explore those options, and what you have for that too.
Yeah, I agree. And look, the 9 to 5, the security, the bonus at the end of the year, the 401k, all that stuff's great, and that works for a lot of people. It makes a lot of people happy having that comfort. But I just got to the point where, I couldn't take that anymore. I mean, I just couldn't take sitting in a cube and being told what to do and having to ask 15 people for approval to make a decision. It just didn't make any sense.
I hear you. Now, we'll close out the show with you giving us your perspective on what it takes to be successful in esports. And, if someone is what would be your advice for someone brand new, just trying to get their feet wet in esports?
I think to be successful in esports, kind of from two sides. From the player side, it takes an intense dedication. I think the top players in the world are training harder and longer than LeBron James, and harder and longer than Michael Jordan ever did. I mean, these guys are playing and practicing and grinding 12, 15, 18-hour days all the time. So I think extreme hard work and dedication, and more than just sitting in front of the computer and playing a game. You need to train your body, you need to train your mind, you need to train your soul, you need to train every part of you. So it's an intense commitment. If you're not a player, if you're wanting to get involved on the other side of the business, whether it's streaming or, starting a business or whatever it may be, then, I think it's kind of like every other space in some ways. You need to go learn some skills, and you need to go get some experience, and then you need to figure out a way to market those skills and experience to whoever you want to be in business with. So, maybe go to college, maybe not, maybe go learn to code. Maybe graduate high school and go to a coding school and then learn how to build something your own and go start your own company. And if that fails, you can always go back to college. Don't be in a rush to go to college. Don't be in a rush to go to grad school. Don't be in a rush to follow. I guess this is where I'm really getting. Don't be in a rush to follow the traditional path that's been set out before you by this archaic, 20th century, production line, industrial age economy that we have that says you got to go to high school, then you got to go to college, and then you got to get a grad degree, and then you have to go work for the man. No, you don't have to do that. 18 and 19-year-olds are starting, billion-dollar businesses. Go do that. And if you fail, If you fail at 21 after you've tried to start a business for 3 years, you can go to college, and guess what? You're going to learn more in college because you're going to have some context around what they're telling you in that classroom based on your life experience, and that education is going to be far more valuable to you than it would have been 3 years before. So go try something, man. Failing is totally okay.
It really is. That's really great advice for sure. Thank you for coming on the show, Stephen. I really appreciate it. One last thing is to just share where the listeners can engage with you online and tell them where to hit you up.
Yeah, the fund website is deepspacevc.com. It's easy to get a hold of me there. And then my Twitter handle is Hazesya, which is HAZESYAH. And I have DMs open on there. It's really easy to get a hold of me on Twitter. And I will respond to anybody. You want to talk about a business idea? I'm happy to engage with anyone.
Awesome. Well, it's been super fun talking to you. I've got a lot of great wisdom from what you've shared tonight and your perspective, and I know that this is going to be a really great episode for people to listen to get a lot of good, deep insights into the industry.
Good. I hope it was helpful. I know I ramble sometimes, but I hope there were some nuggets in there. And, look, I love what you're doing. I think this podcast you're building is something that the space needs. And I hope that more and more people, more and more influential people will come on and give you their time. And if there's anybody that I'm connected to that you want me to reach out to on your behalf, let me know.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. That means a lot.
Awesome. Well, thank you, man. I enjoyed it.
Thank you for coming on and sharing your esports narrative with the listeners. And with that, I just want to remind everyone that if this show goes as planned, this show is just the beginning. Thank you, listeners. I really appreciate you. It would mean the world to me if you subscribed and shared the show. Your word of mouth is amazing. Is amazing. Is amazing. Is amazing. Is amazing. Is